Unpolished soulstones are one of the most important, precious, and rare resources in Watcher of Realms. These are materials that allow you to power up your hero one awakening level, and this goes for all legendary heroes aside from legendary lords. That includes unnameable heroes like Ajax and Ymiret. That includes limited heroes like Kigiri and Anora and Lust and so on. That includes ancient exclusive heroes like Ardea and Alistair and Pelagios. And finally, all normal legendaries, the legendaries you can get from your rare summons and your divine summons. They work to increase the awakening level on any legendary hero in Watcher of Realms that is not a lord. They are slightly more common, it seems, than the full-blown legendary hero soulstones, which can also be used on lords, but since their introduction, they have really changed the game. At the time of filming this, these have been out for exactly 4 weeks, and they have been made available only through Guild Boss, specifically 5 total chests in Nightmare 4 and Nightmare 3. You can get them in Nightmare 3 Guild Boss from reward number 5, the 5th chest, and reward number 4, the 4th chest, and then from Nightmare 4 for the top 3 chests, reward 5, reward 4, and reward 3. Guys, this video is a very deep dive, a very complete guide on what unpolished legendary soulstones are, how to use them, when to use them, and why to use them. It is a monster of a video. It is quite a nerdy passion project video, so if you like it, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 20,000 subscribers. I would so appreciate it. These things have changed the landscape of how we use stones to awaken our legendary heroes, because now that we have a special stone that cannot be used for legendary lords, it is essential that you only use your legendary hero soulstones, the polished ones, not the unpolished ones, that you only use these for legendary lords. That means we need to be very intentional where we use these unpolished soulstones for our legendary non-lord heroes. To me, it is very clear where you should be using these, why you should be using these, and when you should be using these. So that's what we're going to discuss in this video. Once you get them, and at the time of filming this, tonight into tomorrow, we're getting a new update which introduces 2 ways that all of us can get these for free. So you are guaranteed to eventually get these through new buffed rewards. What specifically am I talking about? Well, these unpolished soulstones were introduced with the October 2024 patch, and now with the November 2024 update, we are getting 2 reward changes where the new rewards will now be unpolished legendary soulstones. Once you complete the Odyssey quest, achieve an S rating or above in 3 different bosses in the Immortal Codex, the reward now is an unpolished legendary soulstone. If you've already done this quest, you will get it in your mail retroactively. And we have the addition of a new achievement called Dungeon Master. Once you have cleared stage 10 in both of the 2 gear dungeons, Gear Raid 4, aka Gear Dungeon 1, and Gear Raid 5, aka Gear Dungeon 2, you will get the achievement reward of an unpolished legendary soulstone. So a bunch of us will be getting these immediately after the update retroactively, and for those that have not yet completed that, you will eventually get there. So where should you spend these? This is the most asked question by a mile recently on my videos, on my Discord, the Fast and Fastidious. Go check it out. It is pretty clear to me who you should use them on. More importantly, it is crystal clear to me, and I want to make it crystal clear to you guys when you should use them. There are certain heroes like the Unnamables, Ajax, and Ymiret, where for the most part, it's always a good idea to invest. But with all other heroes, your ancient heroes, your limited heroes, and your normal heroes, there is specifically a right time you should be doing it. In this video, I'm going to break down all of that. Let's get into it.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
Alrighty, so before we go through this hero by hero, and I promise you we will, I have a nice long list. We will do the unnameable heroes, then the limited heroes, and then the ancient exclusive heroes, and then all the normal heroes with one special surprise at the end. Before all of that, I want to talk about when and how to use them. Let's use the caveat, guys. I'm really conservative with resource management. To this day, I'm sitting on all of my normal legendary soulstones. I think there is a time and a place to use them. Unfortunately, on my account, that time and place has not arrived, at least at the time of filming this, and I feel the same way about unpolished legendary soulstones. Also, everybody, a very quick disclaimer. As of filming this, these unpolished soulstones are pretty dang rare. If something changes in the future that they become more readily available, I will obviously be less strict in my opinion about where I think they should be used, but for now they are sufficiently rare. It seems at best people are getting them from Guild Boss about once a month. I anticipate the average is about one every 2 to 3 months. If they get more common, things will change, but right now they are very rare, so I think you have to be very selective and very thoughtful about how you use them. So let's do a couple examples. Let's start with Ajax. In my opinion, if you didn't know, these can be used on unnamables, even though for a lot of stuff in the game, Moonton considers Ajax and Ymiret and unnamables in general to be lords. It seems with the soulstones, with unpolished soulstones, they are eligible. So for that, they are not considered legendary lords. Ajax is always a great candidate. He has legendary lord rates, and in my opinion, all 5 of these awakenings are valuable. Because he is a PvP focused hero, you can always think of these as worthy investments. So the how and the when for him is whenever you want. If you think he is the right candidate, weighed against all the other options on your roster, just do it. You can't really go wrong with Ajax's awakenings. Let's go now to another example, a very hot hero at the moment because he was the newest limited in the game and they just buffed or at least reworded his A3, either making it insanely OP or revealing to us at last how OP it always was. We've got Kigiri. Kigiri's A3 and Kigiri's A5 are phenomenal, and if you need Kigiri's damage for progression, these are excellent options for soul stoning. However, when it comes to the how and the when, there are very key things with Kigiri. His A1 is solid, his A2 is solid, his A4 is pretty darn good. None of those are soulstone worthy in my opinion. Those awakenings are not game breaking. You will not see a major difference. I do not see those awakenings pushing your Kigiri to a new height that allows you to push through new content. The A3 and the A5, however, do allow that. So what am I saying? If you have an A0 Kigiri and you have only one unpolished soulstone, there is no reason to A1 him. You might think, well, this is just a step towards the A3. Well, why do it, right? You don't know by the time you can guarantee yourself an A3 Kigiri if you still want the A3 Kigiri. It's very likely you will, but you do not know that. What I think you should do is save until you pull another copy and then have 2 soulstones, or you have 3 soulstones, and then you have enough to guarantee you can go from your A0 to the very potent, the very relevant A3. I know this means hoarding, I know this means patience, but it is not a worthy investment, and in a game where they're always having power creep and the meta is always evolving, you should not blindly invest sunk cost resources until you have enough in the bag, enough on your stockpile to guarantee you're getting that key awakening. Moreover, once you have that A3 Kigiri, his A5 is completely busted, but if you have only one unpolished soulstone to invest, there's no legitimate reason to go to A4. Wait till you have 2, or you have 1 and another Kigiri, or you pull 2 Kigiris, then you go to A5, right? Do not just invest them willy-nilly. I know people don't like hearing this, you don't want to be conservative and patient, but if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you want to min-max. That is a sloppy way to do it, and it's very likely with Sung Wukong, who's coming out soon, or the future limiteds, they seem to be stronger and stronger every one, you might come to regret it if you invest as you go instead of stockpiling and then investing all at once. Another example now, let's go to a normal hero, everyone's favorite, Silas. Silas has a very strong A3. That being said, I think it's overrated. I do not think every good awakening on every normal hero is worthy of an unpolished soulstone. Quite frankly, I think there are extremely few circumstances when you should ever invest an unpolished soulstone into a normal hero. I believe they are really designed for the unnameable heroes. After that, you can think about limited heroes, and then if you really want, if there is a key awakening that will help you push content, you can think about ancient heroes. And finally, in very specific situations, you can think about normal heroes like Silas. The A3 here, there's almost no content where you're going to be right up against a barrier, and an A3 Silas will help you push over it. You might be saying, Fastidious, what if I'm at 47k on Guild Boss 1, Nightmare 4, and the A3 would help me get 50k? To that, I would say 2 things. Will it? Probably, but it's not guaranteed. And more importantly, couldn't you just farm hard for a couple weeks, save that unpolished soulstone, and get the 50k without it? Because I guarantee you, you can. The A5 now, this is pretty crazy. It increases all physical damage taken by whatever you're targeting. So for boss content, Silas, all of his physical damage, and then all the physical damage of all your physical damage dealing allies, that will all be increased by 15% to the boss. This is very potent. This can help you push through content barriers. It really could. That being said, if you're the kind of person with an A4 Silas, you've already pulled 5 of him. Are you that much in a rush to not wait till you pull your 6th copy? Will this final 5th awakening for Silas ensure you're making a big push through content, some major progress? If all those answers are not yes, it's not worthy, right? It's just not. Eventually you'll get him, especially if you're the kind of person that already pulled 5 copies. Eventually you will get it. This is such an overpowered awakening, but for so many people, 99.99% of you, it is unnecessary. It'd be much better to sit on that unpolished soulstone and save it for one of the unnameable dragons, or use it on a key limited or even a special future limited that we don't even know exists and is so overpowered and has such crazy awakenings. So now I've kind of given you some examples. I've articulated my thinking of how and when you should use them. You use them in the following ways. This is the hierarchy. For unnamables, Ajax and Ymiret at the moment, those are the only 2. You can almost always feel comfortable using them. I will go over everybody specifically though, don't worry. For limiteds, you can feel comfortable using them, but you should wait till a moment when you can guarantee you can push for the key awakenings. I will go over every key awakening for every relevant limited. For the ancients, it's the same thing, but you should be weary because it's probably not as worthy as a limited or an unnameable. And then finally, for the normal heroes, that's the bottom of our hierarchy of importance. Yes, you can do it like an A3 Hex or an A5 Silas, but only if you feel very desperate for progression, you don't want to save them for a future more important thing, you have enough to guarantee the key awakening, and you are confident that key awakening will allow you to progress and push content. All right, exhale, we're a chunk into the video and I have not gone through heroes specifically. That begins now, going from the top of our hierarchy to the bottom, from unnamables all the way down to normal heroes with, like I said, a special hero surprise at the end. So starting with our unnamables and starting with the easiest hero in the game when it comes to discussing where to use these, Ajax. Him and his dragon, they're kind of no-brainers if you're thinking long-term over the game for when to use your soul stones. All of these awakenings are relevant, truly, especially if you have a focus on PvP. If you're strictly a PvE focused player, which I know does cover a ton of you, then you can kind of think a little less about these because maybe he's not attractive, but even still, just getting this A2 is really important. The unnamables have kind of their own lord skill, even though technically they are not lords, where when they are on the team, they increase all team members' damage by 4%. At Awaken level 2, this damage boost to all team members increases by 2%, up to a 6% increase. So with Ajax and Ymiret as well, and any future unnamables, I think you can always feel comfortable investing up to A2. That being said, if you don't care about PvP, if you don't really care about using these heroes, you shouldn't do it until you can guarantee you can get to A2. So if you only have 1 soulstone, you can hold off on Awaken level 1. That being said, if you do care about PvP, both Ajax and Ymiret have strong A1s, so if you just want a place to comfortably and intelligently use your unpolished soulstones, you can always just throw it right into the A1, then when you get another one, get the A2. With Ajax, I think as long as you care about PvP a little bit, this holds true the whole way to A5. So at Awaken level 1, you get additional crit during the ult, so if you're going to use him, that's great. At A2, his base attack is boosted by 5%, that's great. And then of course he bolsters his Ancient Blood Lord-esque passive. At A3, the trigger chance to cast his lightning, which is really potent, is increased from 15% to 25%. For PvP specifically, this is really annoying and really, really powerful. Not only does it deal damage, but pretty significant slows, only 25%, but the duration is very, very strong. At Awaken 4, his cost goes down, so you don't need this for GVG, but if you're going to use him in Arena, or at this point normal PvE content, bringing him from, I believe, 26 cost all the way down to 21 is kind of huge. And then at A5, this is great. Every time he uses his ult, all damage dealt for 7 seconds will be increased by 25%. His ult cost goes all the way down to 800, so fairly affordable. You can spam this a lot and get pretty solid uptime. I think Ajax is a great candidate for this. Ymiret is kind of the same story, but I will say for a lot of players, you can feel fairly comfortable stopping at Awaken level 3. At A1, a ton of bonus AoE damage from his ultimate, and along with it, a pretty significant 2-second freeze. That is nasty. A2, same exact thing as Ajax, improving his Ancient Blood and boosting his base attack by 5%. This is great. And then at A3, a far boosted chance to land his Winter's Bite, which is pretty nasty. It functions as a really annoying RNG-based slow that eventually turns into a freeze as well. This is just really good. It also has the duration increased by 2 seconds if the target's within the talent's range. For those 3 awakenings, I think you can always feel super comfortable using an Unpolished Soulstone on Ymiret to unlock them. At A4, +2 Rage Regen based off of his basic attacks. This is solid, but it's not that special. It will help him ult cycle, but +2 is not that crazy. And then finally, after casting his ultimate twice, all subsequent ults will have their range increased. I don't really see any content right now where you need that increased range. Maybe there will be future GVG maps, but for now, I think a lot of people can be comfortable stopping at A3. So those are the 2 no-brainers. Let's now go through our list of the 7 limited heroes currently in the game, all the way from our OG limited hero, Captain Reve, to our most recent, Kigiri. So first up, we have Reve. Reve is a fairly niche hero, but if you care about Conqueror, he is phenomenal. In general, he's very good for progression, and nowadays he is a beast in GVG. So which of his awakenings do I think are worthy? Well, for him, it's pretty easy. His Awaken level 1 is super strong. I am lucky enough to have pulled 2 Reve during his last banner, so I have him here. This is really good. Every 4 attacks landed, the next attack deals 150% AoE damage to the enemies in range, but more importantly, inflicts them with a 1-second stun. This is pretty steady, pretty consistent crowd control. I don't think for a lot of things this is a game-breaking awakening. It shouldn't be top priority. However, if you do care a ton about GVG and you have like a Morrigan to pair him with, this is really nasty. It's crazy for stall defenses. It's kind of very frustrating to go up against. I also think it's kind of a PvP-oriented awakening, and I think those will age better for using your Soulstones than PvE stuff. Eventually, you can beat everything in the game without Soulstones in PvE. PvP stuff, they can always help give you an edge, and this awakening with the extra stuns it brings, I think it's that kind of effect. I think it's that kind of potency. So it certainly is a candidate, though obviously none of these after the Unnamables will be top candidates. The next limited we have is Falcia. As of filming this, she desperately needs a buff. She's not really playable in any content late in endgame. I think she's got a mess of a kit. I would never, ever use a Soulstone on her, even though she's a limited, because I think even as a base hero right now, she is not worthy. Now we've got Gwendolyn. She's almost certainly our next limited hero for Christmas at the time of filming this. Her awakenings are okay, especially her A3. Normally her ultimate gives a big shield, a really big shield, like the biggest in the game, to one random ally in range. Now with the A3, it will land on that ally and then all adjacent allies as well. This just makes her such a better shielder, takes a lot of the RNG out. I still don't think she's worthy with the content we have in the game right now. Certainly for PvP and certainly for Guild Wars, you could see a meta evolving where this becomes really relevant. But as it stands now, you should not use any unpolished soulstones for Gwendolyn. Next up, we had Lust. Lust is the perfect example of me trying to preach what I've been going on and on about in this video. Does Lust have a decent A1? Sure, it's good. If you run Torador as a Lord for any content where they're hitting the same target, he will always just be equal to her and trump her. She does a 20% defense reduction, so does he on all of his basic attacks. With him, you don't have to rely on the randomness or the infrequency of Sinful Lash. It will already be up, so she can't land a stack of it. It will already be there. This is useless. Same thing if you run her with Wrath, but you also use Ares. It's the exact same thing. Ares is putting on the same reduction all the time, so this is completely nullified and useless. The A2 additional attack is nice, but you really don't need it. The A3, big boost in attack speed is nice, but as an already quick hero, already in the fast attack speed faction because of the Nightmare Lords, this is not needed. Penetration is nice, you don't need it. At A5, crazy, completely broken. That being said, before you do this, you don't want to slowly start investing stones into Lust just to get to something that takes 5 awakenings. If you already have an A3 Lust and you come upon 2 unpolished soulstones, then yeah, you can think about it. But still, please make the evaluation, will that actually help you push content? If we get Apocalypse 3 on Semra, then yeah, it might be pretty darn nasty. But for right now, with the content in the game, if you're already getting 120k on Apocalypse 2 for Semra, if you're already getting 50k for Guild Boss 1, this is useless to you. I currently have A1 Lust. If I had 4 unpolished soulstones right now, I would not put them into her. Would this be nice? Sure. Would it help me anywhere? No. She is not really a PvP hero, so it's strictly for PvE. If there's no content that she will help you push through, even with an awakening this strong, there is no need. You'd be much smarter to use them in a better place, or more realistically, sit on them and wait till you need to use them to help you push content. If they do introduce an Apocalypse 3, then yeah, maybe it becomes a great investment. Evaluate where you are currently in your progression before just investing these willy-nilly, and make sure you can go to the key awakening. For Lust, the key awakening is Awaken level 5. The next limited we have is Dahlia. Dahlia has yet to have a rerun, so a lot of people probably only have her at Awaken level 0 at the time of filming this. Her A1 is really strong, a lot easier for her to get her block buff and her damage buff out. You only have to have your allies adjacent to one of her Cursed Blossoms. That being said, we currently have no content where this would be a major help. You could see it coming in the future, again, especially with GVG, but as of now, this is not a worthy investment. This leads to boosted damage just for her. Could it help you with progression? Sure, but I think very few people progressing through the game have an A2 Dahlia waiting to become A3, where this will make a difference. And then her A5 is extremely strong, but the investment it takes to get there, with the content currently in the game not being suited for Dahlia, it is not worth it. Dahlia is not a Soulstone candidate. Next up, we have Anora, who has really strong awakenings, and this all comes with a big caveat. Anora is a good PvE hero, and if you have Ymiret, she is a phenomenal PvP hero, specifically for GVG. If you're a very competitive GVG player, a couple of these awakenings may be really appealing, but you need to evaluate if you think they're necessary, because they're very niche and they're very focused on one thing. At A1, whenever she triggers Noxious Breath, she's landing a mobilized state for 1 second to up to 8 enemies. That is very significant crowd control. It's basically like a stun. This is punishing in GVG. The A2 is normal, you don't need it. The A3, this leads to a ton of damage from her summon Labor, especially if you have Ymiret, then you got Labor Ice. That is really good, basically shredding through 20% of their magic resistance, making Labor a lot stronger. I think for the vast majority of players, you do not need this. The A4 penetration just in general for her and Labor, this is good, but not needed. At A5, this is pretty crazy. A well-built Anora will maintain very good uptime on Noxious Breath, so this is a near permanent 20% damage increase for both Anora and her summon Labor. But again, these things are super niche. It's like, do you want to have the nastiest defense in GVG? Do you already have Ymiret so you can run Anora and Ymiret together? Do you have a Cyrus to lord them for an Esotericist team? Do you have a Morrigan for a Cultist team? If you don't, and you're not heavily invested in GVG, specifically having the most annoying defense ever, I don't think any of these are worthy. I will say though, she is a Soulstone candidate for a very specific kind of player. That kind of player being GVG obsessed, particularly focused on having a disgusting defense, and really happy to use unpolished Soulstones to achieve that. Finally, we have Kigiri. We talked about him briefly. Definitely the best candidate of the bunch. I want to just circle back. We already said the A3 is bonkers. The A5 is ridiculous. You're guaranteeing he's getting his forward strike always followed by a backward strike. The A3 after the buff leads to crazy permanent damage boosting. It's super strong. Same thing I said about Lust. Right now, Kigiri is extremely focused for PvE, specifically bosses, and most specifically for Guild Boss 2. So many people, myself included, easily will get 120k with Kigiri at a 0. If you're not getting there, but you're getting close, and he will help you burst through an Apocalypse 2 with the A3, and you can guarantee you can go straight to it, or the A5, and you can guarantee you can go straight to it, then yes, this is a good idea. Otherwise, be patient, hold off, wait and see if they add an Apocalypse 3 or other new PvE content, or perhaps a PvP game mode where he will help you burst through that barrier. Right now, I think a lot of people are going to be very tempted that already have an A1 Kigiri, for example, to get their 2 Soulstones after this update if you're watching at the time of filming and snagging that A3. But please promise me before you do, you will make the calculation if this actually is going to make a difference on your account, or if you really just want to spend the currency, maybe be conservative and hold off. I will say, as it stands now, Kigiri is going to be your best choice out of all the limited heroes currently in the game to use these unpolished soulstones on, but be careful and make the assessment first. All right, guys, on to our ancient heroes and then our normal heroes. If it was not clear, everything said from here on out is super specific, super conditional. In my opinion, by a mile, these soulstones are only to be used on unnamables and limiteds. That being said, some of you may be wondering about ancient heroes and normals, so let's get into it. So for these ancients and then normals, I'm going to go really fast now because I don't want the video to be much longer. I'm just going to talk about every hero, and I reviewed every ancient hero, every normal legendary hero in the game. These are the ones I think have awakenings that could be worthy, but please take this all with an enormous grain of salt because in my opinion, in almost all of these scenarios, I would not do it. So kicking things off with Ardea. Ardea, best ancient exclusive hero in the game, not counting lords in my opinion. All of her awakenings are solid. The only one, in my opinion, that would be close to worthy is the A5. She's already such a beast in PvP, and this makes her insane in Arena. She can cycle her ult like crazy. This is very, very strong. Her A1 might seem good with the defense reduction. It doesn't make such a huge difference since her attack is already through the roof. The A3 might seem good, but there's very little content currently in the game where she's killing such a large quantity of enemies that you're really going to get such a big boost from this. The A5 is the difference maker, and again, unless you can get straight to it, but please only do it if you see a real strictly applicable use case for this helping you in your current gameplay. As I said, with all these ancients and normals, I almost always do not think it's worth it. All right, now let's go to Alistair. Alistair's A1 is one of the strongest in the entire game. Basically, Alistair is great for putting out damage in content where the target has a ton of defense. A great example is Semra. Because of his Radiant Erosion, he can land 3 stacks during his ultimate. You can cycle this pretty quick. However, you can keep crazy uptime if you build him very fast once you get him awakened level 1, because when reaching full talent stacks, he will always be at full stacks against bosses. Basic attacks come with a 15% chance of inflicting 1 stack of Radiant Erosion. This is the kind of awakening that could be the difference between someone getting 80k in APOC 2 or not getting it. It could be the difference between someone getting 120k or not getting it. I think see if you can get it without it, and then you can treat using an unpolished soulstone to unlock Alistair's A1 over here as like a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing. Something I contemplated on my push to 120k and thought against because eventually I just did it without it. If you truly think you can't do it without it, it does lead to a very strong boost in damage. This is one of the strongest awakenings in the game, as I said, but I really would think thoughtfully about this before making the decision, because like I said, your unpolished soulstones are not for your normal heroes, they're not for your ancient heroes. All right, only 2 more ancients I think could be worthy. Again, insanely specific. If you really care about PvP, and again, coming back to Guild Wars, Carnelian's A5 is insane. So she puts out her soul essence. These are these red dots that go on heroes. They basically lead to unyielding for your characters. They can't die, they become unkillable. With A5, 20% of the time, your heroes will not consume them. For PvE content, I don't think this matters because you can control it very nicely and you don't want to rely on RNG. For PvP, and again, especially Guild Wars, this is pretty nasty because it can infuriate your opponent. It leads to some of the strongest defenses in the game. This is incredibly niche, but to certain players, it could be worth an unpolished soulstone. To the vast majority, of course, it is not. Finally, a surprise one for some of you, we've got Dassomi. Dassomi has such a good A1 for Guild Boss 2 Semra progression, very similar to Alistair. If you're having trouble with cleansing, Dassomi at A1 can do this in his sleep. Basically, he can put out cleanses from his potent magic incense. If the bear's HP is below 50%, dispels 1 debuff per second. So like there's only the poison debuff out there, so he's always cleansing it. If they're poisoned, their HP, once you get later into the fight, keeps dropping below 50%. He keeps cleansing it off. It's crazy. However, normally he's only putting these out with a 30% chance from his talent. This brings it all the way up to a 50% chance. That kind of takes out the RNG and it just makes him a ridiculous cleanser. This is such a specific thing to do to use your unpolished soulstone on. However, for very select people that are really focused on progression, A1 Dassomi versus A0 Dassomi could be the difference if you're struggling with the poison stages. I would like to encourage you to focus on beating it another way, farm better gear, farm better artifacts, but if you truly think this is what you need, I'm not going to stop you. I mean, do your thing. Now on to our normal heroes. We're going to go class by class, and we're going to go fast, fast, fast. Zilitu has one very important awakening. It is her A3. This could unlock people getting 50k in Guild Boss 1. If you've got a Pyros or a Twin Fiend, this is pretty huge. The duration of her ult is already very significant. At max skill ups, it does last for 35 seconds. This makes it last all the way up to 45 seconds. Combined with Laurel cycling and a Hollow, she'll have crazy uptime on this ultimate, which is where all her big damage comes from. It's kind of going to feel like she's ulting the whole fight. I would like to encourage you not to do this. You can do it without it, or eventually just wait till you get another copy of Zilitu. We're discussing normal heroes. I don't think any of them are worth soulstones, but if you're getting antsy, this could unlock Guild Boss 1 for you. It's a pretty crazy awakening. I will also say her A4 kind of sucks, and her A5 kind of sucks. The A3 is certainly where you can stop. These A1 and A2, don't even think about it. Only use the Soulstone if you're going straight to A3, and even still, I obviously don't think it's worth it, but it could help you progress. Now, very quickly, extremely niche, we have Valkyra. You can always beat Gear Dungeon 1, aka Gear Raid 4, with an A0 Valkyra, but it is like 1,000 times easier, and the gear requirement is far less if you have her Awakened 1. This Awakened 1 is really, really good. It's also very strong in Guild Wars. You do not need it, but if you're feeling desperate, if you're not feeling like saving, this is an option for you. Again, this is niche. It's going to help a little bit with Guild Wars. It will help a little bit with AoE Arena if you're using her there, but mostly it's for Gear Raid 4, aka Gear Dungeon 1. Super niche. Only do it if you feel completely desperate and you don't want to keep saving them. I think you should keep saving, but this is an option. Now we've got Arrogance. Arrogance's A5 is super nuts, but for perspective, I've had my Arrogance at A4 for over half a year. I've never thought about using a normal soulstone on him, and once I get my unpolished, I will continue not to think about this. Two reasons you don't want to do this, right? By the time you have an A4 Arrogance, he should be dealing crazy damage. I can think of very little content where the A5 is going to make the difference. It will lead to significantly more damage, but I just don't see it pushing you over any edges. Maybe for like one person out there, it could. It will be tempting because it is super strong, but I don't think you need it. Another key thing, occasionally on rotation, they will sell an Arrogant Soulstone in the Awakening shop. So as you get deep into the game, which you probably are by the time you have an A4 Arrogance and you have those gold Awakening tokens, once you save up 400, be patient, and then you can just buy an Arrogant Soulstone from the shop. Super strong, super not worth it. Finally, we have my new favorite hero. We have got Twyla. Her A1 right off the bat is going to be so tempting to a lot of people. The vast majority of her damage comes from Deranged Blade triggers. By the end of a long fight, she is doing this constantly, and it's 20% damage per hit. This brings it to 30%. That's 20 to 30. That's a 50% increase in the amount of damage per hit. As a base, she's doing 12 hits every time she triggers this. During the ultimate, it is 18. This leads to crazy damage when you have her Awaken level 1. It is going to tempt people. Only do this if you're 1000% confident it will help you unlock something key in Guild Boss 1 or Guild Boss 2. Those are the only uses I see right now. And again, as I keep saying, even all that being said, I still wouldn't do it. Her A3 is really, really strong, particularly for Guild Boss 2. Her ult duration goes from 20 seconds at max skill ups all the way up to 25 seconds. It's very nice, but I literally think every player can succeed without it. Use your unpolished soulstones elsewhere. Twyla's Awakenings are so strong, you're going to be tempted, but just wait till you pull more copies. Now on to defenders. We have one option here, and that is going to be Constance. Constance at A3 is pretty major. She gets a 10% boost in attack for 10 seconds that can keep being recycled every time she's healed. So every time she's healed, that goes back up to a full 10 seconds. So in most content where she's doing healing or she's getting healed, so like boss content, which is where you really want to use Constance, this will be 100% uptime. 10% post-deployment attack boost is crazy for an inspiration hero, but you know what I'm going to say? It's almost certainly not worth it. Save the stone for something else. Constance is rare, but you will get more copies. It makes a big difference, but there's no scenario where getting her A3 is the only way you can push content. Just farm better gear, farm better artifacts, save your soulstone. Now on to our marksman. We've got a couple options here, but you know what I'm going to say for all of them. Let's start with Silas, just because we already covered him. His A3 is good, but it's overrated. You don't need it. The A5 is the thing that really could help you push content. I'm not going to beat around the bush. It could. I don't think you need it, but if you're feeling desperate, if you're feeling lazy, if you're feeling impatient, this one is a good option. But like I said, if you've already pulled 5 Silases, just wait to pull more. It is worthy, but I just think it's better to use them not on normal heroes. That might be the best awakening we discuss of all these normal heroes. Maybe that or Hex's A3 in a second. However, let's talk about Hatssut. Hatssut's A5 is crazy. If you care about PvP, I do think this is worth it. The only normal hero I will even somewhat advocating for using an unpolished soulstone on, Hatssut is not like a normal hero. She's in her own bucket of rarity. She's what I call an ultra rare legendary hero. Getting her from a normal rare summons or a normal divine summons on average is less likely, unless she's on rate up, than all the normal non-ancient exclusive legendary lords except for Leia and Morgan. She is that rare. Her A5 for PvP is that crazy. Normally at max skill ups, this thing lasts for 4 seconds. With A5, it lasts for a whole extra second. This is crazy for anti-air arena, and this is so punishing in GVG. So if you care about PvP, you can never count on pulling Hatssut even on her banner. This is something where I think it is worth it. None of these other awakenings are worth it in my opinion. Not at all. The A2 is really good because her base attack is low, but even that being said, I don't think you need it. However, if you're deep into the game, if you are endgame, if you're very PvP focused, I think an A5 Hatssut is pretty insane. And if those are your priorities, I do not think you have to feel guilty about using an unpolished soulstone on her. That really just speaks to the rarity of Hatssut. Now we've got Hex. Hex's A3 is insane against bosses. Without getting into all the specifics, essentially against bosses, this increases the duration of his ultimate from 35 seconds to 65 seconds. That is 1 minute and 5 seconds. That is pretty crazy. However, you know what I'm going to say, you can beat all the content without it. Right now, my Hex is A2, and I have an extra copy of Hex, and I just haven't gotten around to filming a video about his A3, so I haven't even awakened him. Yes, it's that good, but if you get deep enough into the game, if you're on top of your stuff, that's why I'm telling my story, you do not need it. It could help you make a huge progression jump though. So if you're using a Piercer team or Infernal team specifically in Guild Boss 1, let's say you're hanging out at like 45k, this really could be the difference. But be wary, I do not think you should use it on a normal hero like Hex, but that A3 is a worthy awakening. Finally, we have Nyx. I do not think you should do this, but Nyx's A5 is insane. If you care so much for some reason about Furious Torrent, this A5 for top scores is required. So if you're a Codex lover, this is important. But again, I think all these awakenings are good, but none of them are good enough besides the A5. Finally, Nyx is very good and very relevant for PvP, but currently she is not top meta. We of course don't know what is coming, and she may return to top meta once again. So if you felt desperate or you felt inclined to do this, or you just love Nyx, it is theoretically a worthy A5, but I think for 99.999% of people, please do not do it. Now for our normal mages, I think Boreas is the only option, and this is very specific. He's not good enough right now in PvP, so it's only for PvE, and for PvE, he can't do anything endgame. He's not viable in any of those things, so it's just for progression. This is only for like people progressing that spend money, that play the game fast and loose. If you want your Boreas to pop off, his A1 is kind of needed. He goes from a 10% chance to inflict freezes upon doing damage to enemies from his talent to a 50% during the ultimate. This makes him pretty self-sufficient. And then at A5, the duration of the ultimate goes crazy from 25 seconds to 35 seconds. These two awakenings can carry you through the game, but once you reach the end of the game, you will regret using soulstones on Boreas. You have my word, but if you love Boreas and you're very impatient, that's an option. All right, for normal heroes, we only have Elowyn. I do not think anyone should do this, but a couple people might be thinking about it, so let's talk about it. A3, all of her basic attacks have a 20% chance to dispel debuffs from allies. Keep in mind her basic attacks are triple hitters. They do multi-target to 3 allies, so this is quite nice. The 20% chance is pretty good if you build her fast because she's doing the multi-target to 3 allies. That all being said, this is only relevant for people that are not pushing for 120k in APOC 2, but pushing way beyond, right? This is going to help you if you're pushing for super duper high scores. It's kind of the only way to keep up with the poisons late in the battle. Only Elowyn and Dassomi have that potential, but for almost all players, you only care about 120k on APOC 2 and nothing more, so this will be irrelevant. If you do care about more, this is very relevant, and if you're already looking ahead to Apocalypse 3, then yeah, I definitely think for a lot of people this will be needed, but for now, it really isn't for any normal player, so don't do it. Finally, A5, you get an extra Wood Elf every time, though you can't have 2 Wood Elves at the same time, but you're guaranteed one immediately whenever you ult. That is good. It helps so much for progression. A5 Elowyn is not about progression, though. This is not important. You're going to feel tempted until we have an Apocalypse 3 and they don't introduce new heroes or something. Don't even worry about it. Seriously, do not even worry about it. All right, that is the end of the normal heroes. You might think we are done. This is such a long video, but no! We're not done because we have one special surprise. We have a hero that is not limited, is not unnameable, is not ancient exclusive, is not normal. We have Lady Alexandra. Lady Alex is only available to be purchased from the Apex shop. This is so specific to so few people. That being said, as it stands now, you can only get her A1 and it will take you forever. You can get 40,000 Apex coins to get her base copy. Then you can get 50,000 to get specifically a Lady Alex Soulstone. After that, the only way currently you will have to get awakenings into her are Soulstones. Legendary Soulstones, do not use them. And then, of course, unpolished Soulstones. If you want to flex, if you want to have the strongest Lady Alex in the game, this hero is insane. Yeah, I think you could think about it. If you're that kind of player, if you're super Kraken, super Whale, super Endgame, whatever it is, and you just want to flex on all them bitches, this is the way to do it, right? Get the plus 300 attack. She's already stupid strong. This makes her stronger. Over here, she gets huge rage restores every time someone dies on a 20-second cooldown, but 35% rage is insane because her ultimate is insane. A little more rage from her basic attacks. And then over here, a big boost in damage if she's hitting 2 targets from 180% all the way up to 240%. This is literally if you just want to flex on your friends and show the world that you're the best at this game. This is like just a trophy wife kind of thing to unpolish Soulstone. But if you want to do it, this is a pretty special way to do it. It's something I would consider, I think. All right, this was a beast of a video. I think a lot of people did not know where I was headed with all this, how in-depth I was going to go, but you kind of knew we were going to get into the weeds. I'm hoping not to make another video like this for a long time. That's why I keep saying at the time of filming. That is why I went so in-depth. This took me forever. A huge thank you to R-Type for editing this video. He is the man. I love that guy. If you appreciate this content, guys, please subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 20,000 subscribers. Give the video a big thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Share with your mother. I've been Fastidious, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.
Let's go now to another example. Let's go now to another example. I said it again. Going from the top. Why can't I? Going from the top. A real applicable, and you see a real applicable. I'm gonna pick up the face. Oh,